Hello and welcome back to World 360. Who is replacing Jacinda Ardern as Prime Minister of New Zealand? Why is the Russian Foreign Minister's visit to South Africa so controversial? We're going to delve into these questions and more in today's episode. First up, who is Chris Hipkins? 44-year-old Chris Hipkins is all set to become New Zealand's Prime Minister after successfully steering the country through the COVID-19 pandemic. He's also the head of New Zealand's Labour Party and is fondly called Chippy. Now, he and Jacinda Ardern, who recently decided to step down, have worked closely together since the start of their political careers. While working in the Ardern government, Chris Hipkins held many portfolios such as education, policing, COVID response, public service, and leader of the House as well. In fact, one of his most famous statements while heading the country's COVID-19 response was in August 2021. During a COVID briefing at the time, he had accidentally recommended people to spread their legs when he meant to say, stretch your legs.
Look, it is a challenge in higher density areas for people to get outside and to spread their legs.
The statement spurred a host of memes and jokes, and Hipkins later embraced the slip of the tongue incident by encouraging people to spread their legs, not the virus. Hipkins did, however, attract some criticism for the aggressiveness with which he wanted to roll out vaccines in New Zealand, and that his government might have to go out and actively look for those who were hesitant to take the jab.
I think early next year we'll be in the phase of chasing up people who haven't come forward to get their vaccination or have missed their bookings and so on.
There was also an incident in 2017 during which Chris Hipkins found himself in the center of a controversy. In August that year, the New Zealand opposition party at the time, which was Jacinda Ardern's Labour Party, was accused of trying to bring down the Australian government. This was after Chris Hipkins, who was an opposition member in New Zealand at the time, had revealed that the then Deputy Prime Minister of Australia was ineligible to sit in Parliament as he held both dual citizenship of New Zealand and Australia. Australian politicians are not eligible to be elected to Parliament if they hold dual citizenship. Now, the then Australian Foreign Minister Julie Bishop had at the time criticized Hipkins by saying, "It is extraordinary that a New Zealand Member of Parliament has allowed himself to be used by a party in a different country with an intent to bring another party in that country down." Eventually, the Australian Deputy Prime Minister was disqualified from his post, but then renounced his New Zealand citizenship and later won back his parliamentary seat. Now, as New Zealand's Prime Minister, Chris Hipkins will have huge shoes to fill as Jacinda Ardern grew to become a global icon and exits the post following a shock announcement about her resignation. More so, New Zealand will go to general elections in October this year, where the Labour Party will attempt to repeat their 2020 landslide victory. For our second topic, we're looking at the Russian Foreign Minister's visit to South Africa. Minister Sergei Lavrov arrived in the country on Monday for the first time since the Ukraine war broke out. So why does this visit matter? Before we answer that, we need to look at South Africa's stance on the Ukraine war. For one, South Africa has refused to condemn Russia's invasion into Ukraine and has maintained strong ties with Moscow. Like many African countries, South Africa was supported by the Soviet Union in the UN during its independence struggle and lays a lot of importance with maintaining solidarity with old friends like Russia. It also abstained at the UN General Assembly on the Ukraine issue and has instead called for dialogue between Ukraine and Russia. This appears to be in keeping with South Africa's roots in the non-aligned movement, much like India's. However, the timing of the Russian Foreign Minister's trip to South Africa is important because next month, South Africa plans to hold joint naval exercises with both Russia and China. The touted Operation Mosi will be conducted from February 17th to 27th. These drills will take place in waters close to coastal cities in South Africa, specifically Durban and Richards Bay. This will be the second such naval exercise between the three countries after the first took place in November 2019 in Cape Town. Now, we've already understood South Africa's close ties with Russia and the reasons behind its reluctance to condemn the invasion into Ukraine, but what about its ties with China? To put it succinctly, Chinese investments in South Africa are significant, from the setting up of port facilities, coal-fired power plants, and helping build special economic economic zones. In fact, Chinese investments in South Africa is estimated to be somewhere between 25 billion US dollars. Now, while South Africa has gained flack for its stance on the Ukraine war, its foreign minister had in April said, "Our non-aligned position does not mean that we condone Russia's military intervention in Ukraine, which has violated international law." During his remarks in South Africa on Monday, the Russian foreign minister also batted for South Africa getting a permanent seat in the UN Security Council, something that countries like India, Brazil, and Japan have also been pushing for. For our last topic, we're looking at how a former president is now asking the public to help him pay compensation to terror attack victims. I'm talking about Maithripala Sirisena, the former president of Sri Lanka. Let's rewind to earlier this month. On 12 January, the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka ordered the former president to pay millions in compensation to the victims of the 2019 Easter bombings. It was the first time that the courts acknowledged the government's role in the attack. Sirisena and other top government officials in 2019 at the time were found to be responsible for failing to prevent the bombings despite receiving intelligence ahead of the attack. The top court then ordered Sirisena to pay 100 million Sri Lankan rupees, or about 2.2 crore Indian rupees or 270,000 US dollars, from his personal funds into a compensation fund for victims and their families. But now Sirisena has stated that he has no financial capacity to pay this. Instead, he has announced that he will try to crowdfund the amount from the public in order to pay back the victims. At a press conference last week, he said, "I don't have the financial stability to pay rupees 100 million. I don't even own a motorcycle. I will have to collect money from all over the country because if the money isn't paid, I will be jailed." Various Sri Lankan celebrities, including actor Sudatha Tilakashiri, have also taken to the streets urging people to donate to Sirisena's fund. Let's not forget that this comes as Sri Lanka attempts to recover from mounting economic troubles and is seeking an IMF bailout. Inflation is still at a high in the country and basic commodities are also very expensive for the common man. So far, Sirisena has received about 1,800 rupees collected from people on the streets. Thank you so much for watching. This is Pia Krishnakutty for The Print.